We're kind of overwhelmed by crazy smartphones right now, inundated by motorized cameras, crazy new features, and sometimes features we don't quite understand. While it is an exciting time, there's still room for phones that are simply just getting things done right. And this is one that gives you plenty of the trends of the current generation without overdoing on where it matters most: the price. That is, if you're lucky to be in a market that sells this solid yet somewhat quiet flagship smartphone. This is Pocketnow and I'm Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? This is our review of the Xiaomi Mi 9. I have to chalk this up to the color that I got of this phone, but there's a quiet dignity to the Xiaomi Mi 9. This gray color shines to the eye and fits comfortably in the hand. Xiaomi manages to make a phone that is thin, easy to handle, yet isn't lacking in many of the aspects that count for average users. There's a nice curve to the body that helps the phone sit comfortably in the hand, and the footprint is not too hard to maneuver for smaller hands. The display is an AMOLED screen over 6 inches, and there is just a teardrop notch up top that provides some good selfies and pulls double time for face unlocking. That's not to say that the phone is lacking in eye-catching aesthetic. That triple camera on the back is meant to impress, and one of the sensors even has this shiny multicolored circle that reminds users, hey, we're Xiaomi, we like to party. And the features that are introduced here are now proven trends, included to ensure everyone knows that Xiaomi's not behind the times. After all, the Mi 9 was one of the first phones to come with the Snapdragon 855, which is now pretty common in the flagship space. They take full advantage of this processor for the updated MIUI, which I'll admit is not everyone's cup of tea, but manages to have fast and smooth daily performance. Even for power users, MIUI provides some features in a gaming mode that is weirdly tucked away in the security app that helps to boost performance and puts notifications aside so you don't get distracted during gameplay. Versions of this phone can get up to 12 gigabytes of RAM, but that is obviously overkill, and the version I'm using, with 6 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of onboard storage, is plenty for everyday use. What I find funny about the hardware is how mixed the bag can be. There's no headphone jack, but Xiaomi adds plenty of control over wired audio when using an adapter, or even better, some of the company's own audio products. The in-display fingerprint reader is a good performer, and I've had no issues getting into MIUI quickly. Speaking of quickly, there is a dedicated button for Google Assistant, or whatever assistant is relevant for your market. The battery is also not going to impress anyone on paper, as this is a flagship phone, but was only given a 3300 mAh unit. That all said, MIUI is aggressive with its background app management, and battery life is still pretty decent. Xiaomi does a great job of supporting the small battery with fast charging, both wired and wireless. When using a compatible charger, the phone kicks into what is called Charge Turbo. And then there is the software. I've already alluded to this a little, the expected mixed bag. MIUI has come a long way, but I still see some people getting frustrated with the different features and design aspects. Personally, I like it, and I find myself enjoying its usage on the daily. No, there's no app drawer, but that isn't a big deal when you get used to where your icons are or you do some diligent organization. Some props I do have to give MIUI this time around is the way it handles an always-on display. I mean, look at it. This looks really cool. It's got this planet with this moon here, and then under is the fingerprint reader, which I already said is a good performer. This was a bit of a surprise for me because the phone just did a software update one day, and then this great standby screen appeared. And then finally, we'll talk about the cameras. There are 3 of them on the back, and one of them is a wide-angle lens, which is awesome to use for both photo and video. You might have seen a real-world camera test that I used this phone in at the Great Wall of China, and I vlogged the entire experience using just this phone. Alongside that wide-angle lens is a zoom lens, a 2x optical zoom telephoto lens that helps with portrait modes. However, there is actually a mode inside of this camera that allows for a full-body portraits, which is pretty interesting. But all of this is just secondary, or rather it bolsters an experience already backed by a great Sony IMX 48 megapixel sensor. That's right, this is the sensor that you might be hearing a lot about in a lot of different phones, and I've been impressed by all of them so far. The Xiaomi Mi 9 is no exception. You can get some really great 12 megapixel shots by the oversampling that the 48 megapixel sensor does, or you can actually use it plainly as a 48 megapixel shooter. Now, obviously, because there's way more data in the 48 megapixel shots, zooming in at the same area means that you get a little bit more detail in the 48 megapixel picture. The only misstep I see here is that the 48 megapixel mode is a single shot. Other companies are using the 48 megapixels with something like HDR Plus in order to get a bunch of different photos and put together the best final result. Overall, the picture quality, no matter what camera you're using on the Xiaomi Mi 9, is exactly where you would want it to be for a flagship device. But the best part about Xiaomi phones is that you're getting those flagship features at a lower price than most others. The Mi 9 undercuts a lot of phones that come in close to that $1,000 price point, but of course the big issue here is that you don't really have this phone available in more markets. Ultimately, what Xiaomi proves with the Mi 9 is that they can still create a flagship experience without having to try too hard. They have plenty of other phones that add in some new features or some different design elements that are exciting yet incredibly different. But this is just a good daily driver that you can get for a fairly affordable price, and you can rely on it for your daily usage. It might get lost in the mix, but when you need something that just works, the Xiaomi Mi 9 is definitely part of that list. But we want to know what you all think. Are you actually using the Xiaomi Mi 9? It has been out for a little while now, so some of you might actually have it, and we want to know what your daily experience has been thus far. In general though, let us know what you think about this phone, and then drop some likes on these videos so we know that you love what we're doing here at Pocketnow. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, you should do so, and then look forward to our next video. We will see you in our next one.